Yo, what's going on, world? It's your guy Horace checking in with you. The very first live stream we're doing here in 2026. Actually, the first live stream probably in a long time, at least a year probably. But today I want to cover a few charts while I am on this stream. Firstly, I want to dive into the one and only BTC, kind of highlight my expectancies there. I just updated this chart earlier today, and it's kind of where I think Bitcoin is headed. I think a lot of people are waiting on the tariff news when that drops. The expectancy was that it would drop today. It didn't. Won't be dropping until next week, I believe, or the 14th, I think is the date. But yeah, I think Bitcoin is still trekking up here for now. It should be pushing up to about 93.4K, I believe. The song ain't hitting the spot. Should be pushing up to about 93.4K based on the size of, kind of want to get this out the way a bit. I think based on the size of this drop action here, Bitcoin is likely to hit 93.4K and then fall back even lower to about 86.7K to ultimately find support there for a higher move up, I think to about 105 or so. I thought support at 90K would be ample enough for Bitcoin to, get that support, but I see this drop has come a bit deeper than I would have expected it to. So, typically when I see a drop come to this level, based on the fib, based on the fractal, I'm going to expect it to drop a little bit lower. I mean, that all depends on the form that it's in, though. Can't say that for every occasion, but based on what I'm saying here, Bitcoin is very likely to drop back down to 86.7K, I think, probably early next week. So, I think not we, because I'm not really exposed here, but I think Bitcoin may squeeze up here over the weekend. And then over, early next week, drop back down here. And the 105K should come back around for Bitcoin. As I've stated on Twitter, or X as it is now, I think Bitcoin is stuck above 85K for the next couple years. So I don't think this area here pretty much is going to get a drop below it anytime soon. I could be wrong about that. I thought 100K would be sort of the baseline for Bitcoin for last year, this year as well. But now I'm thinking 85K, maybe that range where Bitcoin establishes a new floor, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I shared this on Twitter recently as well. I'm not sure if people call it X now, but I still call it Twitter. I shared this recently as well. I think by the midpoint of 2026, Bitcoin would be at about 175K-ish. And that may be its highest point of the year. I think it'll recover after this descent that's likely to come here, but it may spend the rest of 2026 still trying to climb back above what could be the peak at 175-ish K or so. But we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we can connect again between, now and then, of course. What else is on the list here for today? I found this new chart. I mean, maybe you've already known about it, but it's fairly new to me. And it doesn't seem to be all that old, generally speaking, either, but it's STABLE.C.D. And this is really like an index of all stablecoin activity. I think this goes back to like 2010. Let me see. This goes back, god damn it. This goes back to 2025 actually. So not very, old. But we do have some sort of structure here. And based on what I'm saying here, this fits all the makings of a sort of extended flat correction, right? If we're talking about Elliott wave theory. A wave up here, Then we get a choppy B wave going down and a overlapping looking C wave here for this flat correction. So typically when we get a flat correction, we're going to expect action to come back to the opposing direction, of this move. So based on this chart and based on this fractal, I think we should expect to see STABLE.CD make a sharp drop down here in 2026. Very likely to be an all-time new low for STABLE.CD. Not saying too much since this chart only goes back to 2025, but I'm very much expecting this to make an all-time low or a new low here in 2026, maybe mid Q2, Q3, sometime like that. But we should see this push down. Let's see if I can find my. And if we want to look at this a bit closer, so I started tracking this when price was about up here, I think. But if we want to look at this closer, it looks like there's this overlapping action here. But these waves are getting smaller, it seems. So I'm wondering if this could be a sort of contracting diagonal wave. Let's see. Don't really have much trend action here. But this could be a contracting diagonal wave where these waves get smaller in each sort of successive move. So this drop right here would be about 148. This next drop would be about what we got here, 135. And then the last one would be less than 135, right? So this could very well be in that sort of motion right now. We could dive in a little bit closer and sort of see how that could be developing here. This definitely looks, I think this wave is finished. And even if this pumps a little bit higher, I don't think it can be bigger than this corrective wave here. 128, that'd be about 115 or so. So yeah, I'm pretty much expecting the STABLE.CD to push back up here. Of course, we've seen some recent news about, people minting USDT or USDC or whatnot. All of those entries, those buys are going to push that up a little bit higher. So I think we're going to see even more of that here over the next couple of days here, the next week or so. But I do believe that we'll get sort of a head and shoulders pattern here, and this will chop down pretty sharply to make the first wave down for STABLE.CD. And I think we'll see this continue to sort of melt down over the early part of 2026 or early to mid part of 2026. So I'm definitely expecting a big push for altcoins during this period. Of course, I don't think all altcoins are going to perform equally as well, but I have a few that I'm definitely keeping my eye on indeed. Let's jump over here to SPX. So SPX, right, is the elephant in the room, right? Bitcoin may be the elephant in the room now, or going to be the elephant in the room, but SPX is historically that guy. SPX is him, right? But looking at the chart here for SPX, damn, that shit took off today. Okay, let's see if we can calibrate this here. So I was expecting SPX to make a chop down to about 6877 or so, but with this breach above this height here, 6877 probably won't be getting hit. But there's definitely a deep correction coming for SPX based on this fractal that I'm looking at here. Instead of a simple zigzag that I thought may be coming, there may be a double zigzag coming here instead. So if that is the case, then I believe that SPX can likely return to this this trending area here. Did I move it or did I not move it? Okay. Yeah, so very likely we return to the 6886 area. It's still pretty much the same general area as this drop was shown as before, but it's obviously just going to be a little bit delayed in getting there, I think. But for my sort of longer look at SPX, I think it's going to continue trekking up here. I thought this sort of wave would end in January, but it may push out to February, it looks like. And I think this move is going to be very macro for SPX. I shared a video about this on YouTube recently. I've been pushing it on Twitter as well. Just pretty much trying to get people to think about, things as we move along. But I think I need a bigger time frame here. 93 years of action on a 1 hour chart. But you kind of get where I'm going with this. Like, we're looking at the microwaves here. We were initially, but if we look at SPX from, what is this, 1929 until now, we see that this is a very, very, very important trend line here. Like, this is not necessarily an Elliott wave thing. This is just basic technical analysis, looking at this trend line, the longest available trend line for SPX, and we can see that it is going back to 1878. We can see that it is undeniably the most critical, important angle on the chart, and we are at that point currently as well. I mean, I can show you the proof. Like, these are directly on the lines. You see that wick there? That's directly on it, right? This one a little bit above it, but we got about 3 or 4 smaller candles here as well on that line. So then you got all this action here as well. So I don't think SPX is about, ready to drop and fall today, but there is a very sharp correction, I think, that's coming for SPX. I know we've been saying this. I say we as analysts, whether they be quantitative analysts or technical analysts or fundamental analysts. People have been saying it for a while that SPX is going to drop hard or that recession is coming or whatever. But I do believe that based on this SPX chart that there is a very sizable correction coming. And I think that I thought I had another trend line here. I recently changed the color of my canvas, so I've been having to relocate some things that I've made use of before. Yeah, I think once SPX pushes up to 70, 78 or so, I think it's going to begin on a very sharp and long trek down. I think maybe the very first point where it'll find some reliable potentially support is going to be around 6,000, right? So if you're surfing here, stay safe, don't drown, be aware of your surroundings, so to speak. Those institutional guys, they are sharks. They'll chew your ass up. So be careful out there. And I do think SPX will have some choppy overlapping waves coming soon to signify the turning of the tide here, so to speak. So keep on the lookout there for sure. What do we got here? It's TOTAL3. It's one of my favorite charts. Before I discovered the STABLE.C.D joint, I used to be on here like all the time. I'm still here very frequently, but not as much as I used to be. Probably now because I feel like I have a good grasp on what this chart is doing, what this structure is sort of, telling me based on the waves. And yeah, I've been saying it for a few months now, maybe even a year. It could very well be a year that I've been saying this yellow level here is going to be coming. So it's moving along very slowly, slower than I anticipated rather, but I still think 1.7 trillion is coming for total three very soon. That would be a 100%, I think, increase, roughly, okay, 83%, right? That 17% definitely counts. So we'll say it'll be an 83% from current price, or current value market cap for total three. Um, and I do think maybe around Q2 or so, Q3, there's going to be a sharp correction across the crypto market. I think I showed the same thing on Bitcoin's chart, perhaps. Maybe I didn't. But I do think there's going to be a sharp drop in crypto around Q3. That'll bring total three back down to the current range as well. So definitely something to be on the lookout for there. There's this decent trend line here, but from a more macro perspective, it looks like this total three chart is kind of in a zigzag wave. It could be in a wave three move, but based on the angles and things like that, based on this deep correction here and what I think is wave B, I believe this is going to be a macro type of corrective wave for total three. I could be wrong there. There's a lot of time before that plays out, but in the short term, I think we can expect to see total three push up to about 1.7 trillion. And, that in conjunction with the STABLE.C.D chart looking very bearish, at least in my perspective, I think that is a good sign, or good signs rather, that you should be parked on your favorite coins, whatever they are, and expectancy that they're going to make a move up. Not saying they will, but I think very strongly rather that this total three chart is going to move very strongly up to 1.7 trillion here over the next couple of months as well. And I believe the last joint I wanted to look at today was none other than gold. I think gold is kind of like SPX, where it's on a macro peak that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. But I think gold is making a very transitional move up here. I can't say for sure if gold is going to peak here or not. It's probably not. If I'm looking, it's hard to say. But I do think gold has a pretty sizable correction coming here, where it's going to push back down to this trend line here. I know I've mentioned trend line a few times, and I like to use trend lines, but primarily what I'm doing most days is I'm diving deep into the waves, the hour charts, the minutes charts, trying to see how these waves are developing. But of course, I start with the macro chart before I touch anything. So that's kind of how I work my analysis. And I believe quite strongly that gold is going to make a decent drop back to about 4,400 here over the next few days. So we'll see how that goes. More importantly, however, if you are exposed to gold, like if you've been holding gold your whole life, if your grandma hold gold and she keep that shit in the closet, tell her she might want to consider more digital options. Get away from the analog joint. But I also think gold is due for a very sizable correction. Like these waves down here, like you can barely see what's going on, but I generally see, up action here. Then there's this little hump. There's this little hump area here, and then you get another blast up, right? So, with using Elliott wave theory, I read when I first started studying it back in 2019 that you have to have a creative mind or some shit like that. I remember thinking like why, for what reason? But of course you have to stick very close to the rules and the guidelines. The rules cannot be broken. The guidelines have to be respected greatly. But in cases like this, where you don't have a lot of definition as to what the waves are doing, you can kind of generally look at it and, consider those same rules and guidelines and, see what comes of it. But Looking at this here, I think this is an initial zigzag wave move here for gold. I think it then makes a three-wave correction here, a mid-wave, so to speak. And I think gold is now making another major zigzag wave up, right? And being that this is it's a trending wave, I guess you can say it's kind of a trending wave, but it's not a trending wave that I think is going to sustain support up here at these levels at all. So I think gold is going to make a major transition as well, probably over the next couple months. Definitely some point in 2026. I believe these overlapping waves here, you can see the ones that are in white, but these have been overlapping since about October, and that is a telltale sign of a diagonal wave. Um, Wave 4 can never cross into wave 1 during an impulsive wave, but sometimes you may see that when we're talking about a diagonal wave, right? And then we have a zigzag wave here, and then we have another dip zigzag wave here as well. So this is very much overlapping, very much a sort of a distributional phase, it looks like to me. And I think that we'll start to see gold make a drop after it touches this $4,700 range. Um, I didn't think it was going to reach 4,700, but based on this little move up that we got here today, I think that does give gold enough sort of legs, or it will rather, after this next drop happens. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I think those are pretty much all the videos that I wanted to discuss here today. Let's jump back and see what Bitcoin is doing here before I hop off of this joint. Still moving pretty slow. I used to sit on these streams like all day when I was on TradingView. I used to do streams on there back when that was a thing. I don't even think they do those streams anymore, but I used to sit here for hours and just waiting on these candles to move, and just, it was quite fun actually, but I'm definitely not doing that shit no more. Yeah, these are my thoughts on Bitcoin, on SPX, on the stable coins, on gold as well. I track these items very closely, almost at a daily rate. I have been for a few years on some of those. So I definitely enjoy doing that. So if you need help with analysis on any of those, definitely follow me here, stick close, and we can talk about charts all day long. It's your guy Horace. Stay safe, don't drown. We'll do it again soon. Peace.